This isn't your typical site visit. This time, I'm walking through the ruins of one of the largest construction projects in military history. Let's get into it. Welcome to What the RFI. I'm Matt Brennan, and this is the podcast all about CA. So, it's been a while. It's been a really long time, and I apologize because for the month of April, I was gone fulfilling a major bucket list item on my personal journey, my life and everything. It took me about 22 years to get to this point. So what did I do? Well, I traveled Europe, right? And I know that's a open-end destination, of course, and we'll get into the details of where I went and the trips and everything. But I went with my partner, Julia. The two of us have been wanting to go for a long time. I've been wanting to go for a very, very long time, and we had an absolute blast. And that's what I'm going to go through. I'm going to tell you about it, but we're also going to go about some of the architecture that we saw, both in Germany, France, even in Normandy, which is still France, of course. But in addition, I want to discuss the largest military projects that was ever constructed over there. Okay? There was lots. We can take this in many different ways, but I think from the opening, you kind of know where we're going with this. So let's start with my little trip here, because I want to share about it. I want to share about the journey, what I went on to, what I learned, and just maybe it's an item that you want to check out too. So let's get into it. The start. Well, we flew into Frankfurt, which was awesome, right? Flew in there. It was I think it was almost a 12-hour flight from Vancouver, BC. And upon arrival at the airport, we met with Julia's parents, which was great. They picked us up. It was nice. We didn't have to jump on any extra trains or anything in that respect. And we drove to Karlsheim. This is where my partner Julia kind of grew up. Lived in the same house and everything. Such a cool little small town. Great little place. Again, had kind of a surrounding wall throughout the city, which was unfortunately bombed during World War II. But again, a lot of the remnants in the history still stands there. You got kind of the rolling hills throughout there, the environments, just incredible. So upon getting there, we were kind of jet lagged, of course. And again, it was the longest I've ever flown and through multiple time zones. In the end, it wasn't bad. Getting there, we were a bit of a zombie. And my little tip is stay up as much as you physically can. Do not go to sleep. And I did have a little bit of nap on the plane and everything for a couple hours just to kind of keep recharging the battery, trickle charging me, we'll say it. Once we got back there, tried to stay up as late as I could, I think about 10 o'clock, and then I just crashed. And the next day wasn't so bad. And then the following day, I didn't even notice I was tired. I was in the new routine and the new schedule. It was awesome. And it was the right way to do it. There's my little tip for you. But anyways, we just had a great time through there, kind of visiting with the family in that sense. Taking the bikes into town, kind of seeing all the history that came up where again, Julia kind of grew up in that sense. It was really, really slick. And, again, saw her extended family, her sister, brother-in-law, nephew, and just getting to know everyone in that respect. But one of the special nights that kind of the beginning of the trip, we went out for dinner with her family, her folks, and it was kind of an old a place that was a barn that was renovated. Best roast beef ever. Wow, amazing. Lots of walks. Lots of drinks at the parents, and it was just a blast. It really was. It was awesome to no extent, and definitely. Sun tanning out in the back. Even though it was April, it was still very warm. We lucked out on weather, which was great. And the common theme was upgrade, right? With Julia's parents, she would kind of, her parents would, we would kind of eat. We started eating in the kitchen, then we actually ate in the dining room. We called it an upgrade. And next thing you know, the china was coming out. It was an upgrade. It was a good running theme. It was a lot of fun, lots of laughs. One day we had a downgrade. We just weren't using it as a nice, cutlery or whatever the case was. It was just fun. So many laughs, absolute blast into it. So then the trip kind of really started to take off. So we jumped on the train. We got dropped off and we went from Karlsheim to Paris, right? City of Love, right? Beautiful place. And again, always on the bucket list. We stayed downtown on the 18th north of Paris. So again, we were right in the northern side of Paris. Have you ever been in that quadrant? And great little place. And we got there a little bit late, and of course we were hungry and things. We wanted to get and eat, and we definitely wanted some wine, right? Absolutely. Come on, we're in France. Let's toast to that. And we, thankfully, right from our place downtown, our little hotel, we just ripped around the side, and then sure enough, there was, just a nice little pub and everything. The culture, it was just beautiful, having a glass of wine and just listening to the culture, listening to, just the rain outside. That one night we did get rain. And it was just incredible. It was just so much fun in that. And the next day was kind of woke up, course, we had our coffees. We went to a nice bakery, incredible food. And I just want to pause on the food side, and then we'll come back to this a few times. The food was incredible. And it wasn't just incredible, but I felt so good inside, right? And again, when I come here and eat, it's just a different story at home. So again, what you eat is what you're putting in you and that kind of stuff. But seriously, the food over there is just, it's not just taste good, but it's really healthy. All the stuff, the additives that are not going into there compared to here on the North American side. So just kind of one thing I really noticed. We could eat as much. And throughout the trip, I only gave 5 pounds, and I lost it like within days getting back, right? Versus if I go to somewhere, like I said, North America wise, it's easy to throw on 10 pounds like that. And it's hard to get it off. So anyways, back to where we were. So the first day, we actually grabbed a planet from Little Planet, which was an awesome little book. Great ideas for in there. It talks about different walking tours, things to see if you ever want to be a tourism. It's great. Google AI is great. It'll help you too. But this is just an old school way of just kind of seeing what out there, planning some really walkable trips that people have done. And that's what we did. And so we kind of did the North Quadrant where we were. And we started off, we saw the Wall of Love. It was, again, just beautiful. These blue tiles all throughout, and then white writing in all different languages, just saying, I love you and everything. So it was really, really special. Just nice to see that. Very popular, of course. Crowds were definitely heavily around it. And in conjunction to this, we just saw lots of art everywhere, right? People were painting stuff on. We had little birds painted up, and it was just a neat little area of it. We went basically up to Sacré-Cœur, the chapel at the top of the North Hill. We didn't go into it. Lines were really busy, but again, this is where the architecture was really starting to shine, right? The attention to detail, all the stonework, the cut stone, the attention to details on the columns, and where we're kind of at the top of the pilaster, like, wow. And it just kept getting better and better and better. And this is the moment where we finally saw the Eiffel Tower from afar. We could see in the distance, took a bunch of photos, and very cool. We made it down to Notre Dame. It finally reopened. And because this was the Easter weekend leading up to it, they did open the doors. We got to go in there, take a look. We only waited in line for about 15 minutes, which really wasn't that bad. And again, just the massive architecture to it. It's nice to see that it was finally restored from the big fires that we had a number of years ago. And one of the comments I made was looked like all the paintings were fake. Well, no, they were restored. There's special painters that were very detailed and selected to come in and restore all these photos. And it was cool to see that just the history come back to life, even though it looked like a fresh print. It very, very impressive. And again, that's just, I've done my painting on the side, but at the end of the day, nothing compares to what these artists do. So kudos to that. Okay. At that point, we kept walking. We checked out the Louvre, and then we needed to call it a night. And we, grabbed some dinner, and we, grabbing our coffees, you name it. And the second day was more the day I think I was looking forward to. And that's because we had Eiffel Tower tickets, and not just any kind of Eiffel Towers. We bought the walking tickets. So basically, a little tip, you want to definitely book it way in advance. The elevators for the Eiffel Tower fill up very fast. If you are willing to walk up to the second floor, which is still, the views are incredible. Yes, you can take an elevator to the top floor, but honestly, for the amount of time that you have to wait to do that, the second floor is still very, very incredible. So tickets go on sale 14 days in advance. For the walking tours, you can scoop them up pretty good. You pick your time, basically walk right up, walk and get in there. And of course, it's walking. So And there's not a line because it's just you just hit it and then get going. And it's over 700 steps, between kind of getting to the second floor. But again, even at the first floor, it's incredible. The views are amazing. Going up to the second floor, there is a glass floor at one point. Scary as ever if you're up to into that thing. I tried it. It definitely set my nerves off thinking about it right now. Hey, but very, very slick, very impressive. Again, a piece of architecture for it. It was built for a fair, and look what it is. It's sticking around ever since. Now, the one thing that we did learn that, because it's steel and it rains in Paris, what happens? Well, the only thing keeping this alive is the paint. Well, every 7 years, this thing has to be painted, and it's like 100,000 tons, or I can't remember the exact number, like 7,000 tons of paint, something crazy. A huge amount of paint goes into this in repainting this every 7 years. And again, it's not painting a wall where you're rolling, it's all these spokes. So if you've ever painted your stairs and those spindles, yeah, do that. But for a long, 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 long time, and let alone if you're afraid of heights, good luck. That's all I got to say. Because some areas, no problem, but there's some areas that I don't know. That's a whole documentary out there. I bet you can find on Netflix. Okay. So great thing, incredible views, amazing. And it was time to basically head off, grab some lunch, and we grabbed some e-bikes, zipped around the town, checking everything out. Went to the Pantheon, got to see all that architecture. And again, that's where they cut stone, the architecture just shine. Julia would look at some of these columns and just look at the details and just wonder and just imagine the hours and hours spending into this one little detail to hopefully it doesn't crack when they hit that final piece. We go into the Pantheon, it's full of statues and everything. Again, all beautiful cut stone, incredible. The attention to detail, you can't, even through pictures, it doesn't do justice other than being there. So very cool to see these places, going into the crypt, and saw, all that respect. And of course, back on the e-bikes. And then we just went around town. We saw the Louvre at night, which was really special. We did see it during the day. Fortunately, we couldn't get into it just because of the, again, you want to buy your tickets very well in advance. But even in the Louvre, like there was something like over 33,000 pieces. So even if you stood at each piece for 30 seconds, you would be in there for 3-4 days nonstop. So like you'll never ever see anything. You definitely got to go and go. So next time when I get there, we'll definitely go check it out, just from the artwork side. But again, seeing just the exterior from night was incredible. Just again, the architecture, the details that came from it. Of course, we biked over to Arc de Triomphe, again, the arches. We went and saw that. And again, it's just nice kind of seeing that history of Paris. And of course, we got to go see the Eiffel Tower at night. So we went to the Trocadero. I'm probably butchering these names. I apologize. But we went there and yeah, it was really cool. It was really special to kind of see that, drop off our e-bikes, jump onto the train, the subway, get back to home and just call. And we were tired. We were done. It was an adventure. But I think that, again, throughout all this, we would just stop and eat where we wanted. Like, hey, let's get some crepes. Oh, let's get a cafe. Let's get a latte. Let's get a salad. Let's get a nice meal. Anywhere, no reservations. Just walk in, done. And the service is so different. They don't expect you to tip versus what North America is, right? That's a big thing that's really changed over this year. And in addition to that, too, they don't rush you. You just go in and enjoy and relax, sip your wine. You want some more? You almost have to get their attention most of the time. And I think that was really special. The day of rushing, just slowing down and enjoying it. And the meal didn't have to be rushed. No one was, trying to push you out to get the next person in. That wasn't it, because there was restaurants everywhere. And again, we never had to wait in line. So I think really, really special with it. So after that, it was time to basically say goodbye to Paris, jump onto our train to Cannes. Okay. We rented a car, and because we got there kind of early in the morning, midday, we did spend a few hours at the Memorial de Cannes, and it was a World War II museum. Very, very powerful, very cool. We actually started off in a bunker. This was basically, the museum was built on top of a German bunker inside the hillside. And we got to see that. And then one of the big things with this trip that I wanted to do was to see the World War II history. I love World War II history. I don't have any really extended family that have been into it. But since I was a kid, since I was like I think in elementary school, I just was fascinated by, by the whole D-Day experience and the war and how it happened and all the history and the culture. Last year, I was in Washington, D.C. at AIA, and I had a free day, which I went into the Holocaust Museum, and again, learned a whole new level on that respect too. Again, I knew about it, I understood about it, but it was just a whole new level of where it was, and appreciation, and definitely remembering of all that were lost from it. So World War II history has always been something of interest in my life. Studying it, I've watched all the Hollywood, specials, Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers, and all that kind of stuff. But always very interested, very curious about it. So part of this trip was dedicated just to kind of seeing this part of history. So we went from, after that museum. It was really powerful. Again, there was a portion of the Holocaust. I was talking about that too, and just seeing how war, and basically even to the Berlin Wall and that kind of history, and it was just very good, and seeing it from this side of the world versus from the North American side. Okay, and our bed and breakfast, where we stayed for kind of the majority of the time when we were in Normandy, was in Courseulles-sur-Mer. And that's basically Juno Beach. That's where the Canadians landed on D-Day. And there is an amazing museum right there. And the nice thing about this World War II museum, it's actually hosted by Canadians. So Canadian exchange students, individuals basically are working there. I really did want to get to take a look at it, but seriously, we kind of only dedicated a day for this whole experience. You could dedicate a week and not even do it. There's about close to 30 museums that are World War II museums out there in Normandy. So good luck trying to do that in 2 days, even a week. 2 weeks would barely crack it. So lots to see and do, plan accordingly, but we try to do it in a day. And I'm going to get into that. But our bed and breakfast was incredible. Again, old exposed walls. This is one of the original buildings prior to the war, and what an incredible place. And because we were tired after the museum and the drive, really wanted to do some reading. And at that point, I went for a walk along Juno Beach. I just wanted to see it, walk along the pier and everything. And the moment I did that, I kind of caught a corner eye, and I saw my first World War II bunker. And it was on the other side of the channel. So I had to kind of walk back and retrack and go to it. And it was, it hit a little hard, because it was, wow, this is the history, right? And it was sunken in, went in, got to see it. And just had to pause. And this brings me to the topic about the Atlantic Wall, right? We're going to talk about this. This was one of the biggest military projects in military history. How this, what came of this through World War II. And of course, the construction administration that went into building this massive, massive project. So what is the Atlantic Wall? Well, first off, it was the massive German coastal defense system spanning from Norway to France. Okay. The Germans knew that they were going to invade it at some point. They knew it was going to happen. They knew the invasion. This was if anything, this is their line of defense that they had to protect. And they understood that, given all the scenario, even, the attempts from the British side of things, from Churchill and so on. That's what the reality was. And the historic context between this was all this Atlantic Wall, right, was built between 1942 and, of course, 1944 by the Germany, of course, to defend against the invasion, like we talked. Okay, so get this. Here's some fun facts of the whole feature of this. There was a total of 15,000 to 18,000 bunkers built. Holy smokes. And yes, I know they were pretty straightforward designs. They were a concrete little box, couple different variations. Some were holding artillery and that kind of stuff, but 15,000 of these things, right? Just everywhere, littered the whole coastline, like we talked about, in the inland as well too, right? Keep in mind. So this whole wall, we're calling it, these bunkers, was built a total length of 2,600 kilometers, which works out to be 1,600 miles, right? Massive, massive there. And like I said, this went from Norway to the Spanish border. Okay, so huge amount of area to capture this, to make sure. And the timeline, of course, Here was the construction schedule. It was roughly 2 years. And again, the real work kicked off in 1942. Okay. And I remember even reading about this in the few museums that we did check out, and how they did change hands, and they were worried that things weren't going to be done. And when it got into, I can't remember the general's name, but one of the generals, like, he knew it was going to be a problem. They were still exposed and stuff, and they wanted to be even beyond. And of course, the labor force who came in and helped this, well, hundreds of thousands, and of course, there was forced labor, right? In that respect. And, it was a massive project to get this going, to do it. But there was a lot of unfinished elements. They didn't complete this project in time of June 6, 1944, D-Day, right? And, a lot of segments were incomplete. They were lightly fortified by 1944 because they realized they weren't going to be able to finish these. So they did what they could to make it look like it was done, or just, put that main artillery gun in there. Lots of critical gaps in Normandy, which of course resulted for the D-Day excess, right? That was kind of the thing. Project Overlord was the operation that they called it. And the shortage of concrete. This kind of sounds like today's culture right now in our buildings. Shortage of concrete, steel, labor hindered the full completion. And again, keep in mind, these aren't concrete trucks they were doing. They were, they did have trucks, but it was a much different element, the roads and everything. And again, it was a different day and age back in 1944, 1942, compared to what it is today, right? So much different challenges that we had with that. And they were prefabricated bunkers. They had set designs, once you kind of saw a few, but they all had a little bit different variants. They had their purpose in mind. And of course, they were designed to the landscape to basically protect and defend from, whatever invasion could have been, right? Again, some of these were radar towers, observation posts, tank traps, anti-air defense, you name it, right? And definitely some heavy artillery we did see in TAC, which was quite interesting. And so some of the site visits that I took on and the observations that I saw from the bunkers that were still standing today is, the walls alone were anywhere from kind of 2-3 feet of concrete, pure concrete. These things were massive. The rebar. I grabbed a few books that kind of showed the guys doing and putting the rebar. Like, they were building these as to be these solid tanks, as you can imagine, because they were totally expecting to get bombs dropped on them and to defend the coast. So of course they had to do everything they can. A lot of the little architectural details that stood out well was the way that they looked at the landscape, how they built it into. They had the alcoves. They had a bunch of kind of little hiding area points. So you can, for cover, if someone was on shore, that you could, or even if someone got close to it and they had to come through down the bunker there, well, again, there was that protection point, how they designed it. Again, very similar to what a castle would. Again, why is the spiral staircase going reverse? Well, again, from the individual going down, they have the way that they can swing their sword versus the opponent who's going against his hand. So just those details of just combat history just played a big role into that designing of it. And of course, they had all the little keyholes again for the guns and whatever the case was, basically to protect, shoot, again, do whatever they could in that sense. And you would see all those details in place, right? How is the environment worn today? Well, again, it's been a lot of years, right? In that respect, or 80 years. And what you're definitely finding the concrete starting to deteriorate, but it is concrete. It will last forever in that respect. Some of these bunkers are definitely sinking into the ground. You can see that. Some are buried by the sand. Again, just the natural changing elements to that. Some have been deemed unsafe, of course, and they don't allow people in, but a lot of them you can go in, take a look, touch the walls, and just be part of what that history was and just see it. And we definitely saw things slip through the cracks when it came to the CIA execution. Like I mentioned kind of earlier about, a few generals came on trying to restart, trying to get this project moving and get going because they realized that there was some critical areas that weren't being done. Unfortunately, it was too late. It really, really was for these. And the construction was on extreme timelines. And of course, the geopolitical side of things, given the status of what it was, right? It was quite interesting once you read into the deep down history of it. And, even like being part of this history and going in through these bunkers, one of the areas I'm going to talk about in a second is Point du Hoc. You could see the coastline, right? And once you get into like, I was standing at one of these artillery areas, and I apologize, I can't remember the name where it was. It was on our way to Omaha Beach, and I just stood there, just leaning against the gun, just looking at the coast, and just pausing and going, imagine just being a German in that case, where you see it. Just you wake up one morning, it's nothing. You wake up the next morning, and oh my goodness, a fleet of ships. Just incredible. Like, not incredible, but just how frightening that would have been from both fronts, right? And then, of course, the US, the British, the Canadians coming over and seeing this massive wall too for the first time. Just words cannot express what that would have felt like. So, kind of a takeaway, just the legacy, the preservation of this wartime architecture. It's there. You can go see it. I encourage you to do that. And this kind of ties me into my D-Day beaches and how one of those kind of bucket list things I wanted to do. And like I said, we dedicated a full day to the D-Day beaches. Well, first of all, we stayed at Juno Beach, which was really nice. And we actually, before we left back, heading on our trip, we just, got up in the morning and just relaxed and took it in and saw it with the tides out. So we started with our first beach that we actually went to on that day. We actually was dedicated to the beaches, was the Amroche Les Bains, and that was Gold Beach. Okay? And upon arriving to it, it was very humbling. Okay, I didn't know how I would react. Again, I've studied this, I've read it, I've watched the movies. I've every day every Remembrance Day, I'm there, front and center, rain or shine, doesn't matter, because it's really important for me. And when I got to there, right away we kind of we parked, not a big deal. And once we kind of got close to the beach, and we were kind of going through the town, and and seeing that, and then the beaches were there. And I think it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And we saw right away the artifacts that were left from the British troops that basically made this full seaport. So we saw all the individual kind of docking systems that they had in place. And, a fair amount, of course, was taken away, but there was a fair amount left too. And just seeing that, the whole thing just hit me, and it was very powerful. And I've heard that, I've talked with others, and the same thing. They didn't know what to expect, and just very humbling to be at that moment and see. Okay. And yeah, like I said, it was very emotional. And so we stayed in town. We did grab a coffee, and we definitely did a lot of reflecting. And that's where we, like I said, we went to a couple other World War II bunkers on the way. Just kind of took a look, got some photos, saw the trenches that were still there, and then we finally made our way to Omaha Beach, bloody Omaha, the worst one, where the U.S. took action to, right, to try and take that. And we parked at bunker WN65, and there's lots and lots of photos from kind of showing it, and it's kind of, the bunker was on the hillside, right? So we looked at the bunker, we started walking up the hill, and then there was a bench, up on the hillside, and I actually had to sit and just kind of looked and just in awe of just going, this is what happened on D-Day. This was why this was the worst invasion there. Over 3,000 men lost their lives in that, those few hours, just because of the complexity of that scenery, of the landscape that it provided, right? All the other beaches were pretty laid out. Minimal lives were lost. It doesn't matter. It's a life, but it definitely nothing compared to what Omaha Beach encountered in that sense. And just, sat and reflected and just seeing and just, like I said, analyzing the challenges that they could have faced with all this, let alone all the traps and everything. Get into that in a second. And because we were on top of the hillside, we kind of went along the ridge. And again, just the views, and saw more bunkers. And the next thing you know, we're walking on top of a bunker that's buried, right? Just what a challenge that these men faced as soon as they came up to that. They had no idea, right? And again, most of them were underage, too. we walked down and we got down to the beach. Now the tide was in, and which was a little unfortunate. I really wanted, we should have got there a lot earlier when the tide was out, and then just to kind of experience, because that's the thing, on D-Day they got there like super early. I think like 6 o'clock. That's when they landed, and the tide was way out. And of course, the reason why they wanted to be on low tides was because there was so many traps set up along the whole beach, everything from mines and the barricades and everything. Like you couldn't get a U-boat up there, and it was just a nightmare for it. And that's why they definitely landed before, from my understanding. So we got there. It was higher tide, but it was still out enough that we could walk along it. And just I took a knee on it, put my hands in the sand, and just stood, kneeled, reflected. Again, it truly sucks. It's sad that this had to take place. But I'm thankful that the Americans, the British, the Canadians did do it, and because who knows what today's landscape would have been, if someone didn't do it. We just don't know. So very powerful. And like I said, we walked along the beach, walked in our sandals and our bare feet, and saw the monuments and just reflected. And again, reading all the names. And we didn't make it to the cemetery for the U.S., but I heard it's been very, very incredible too. And we kind of finally, we had a few hours left in the day, so we zipped up to Point du Hoc. And, and that was, again, it was kind of on the edge of the walls, the cliff. These cliffs are 130, 150 feet tall. And this was where a major artillery site was, where they were, it was massive guns, tons of bunkers, and just blasting out to sea to basically, stop the invasion that was happening. And yes, this area was bombed to death. You can see the craters when you got there. We also had the Rangers, that's what they call themselves, who basically rappelled up that massive wall, got up there, captured the site as well, and a big team effort to basically allow for more, ships to come to shore to basically carry on the invasion. Everyone was doing their part. There was no I in team, and of course, everyone was doing their part, whether it was air, from the land, right? Everyone was doing their thing, and very, very important. Again, how it all came out. Okay. And that really kind of concluded the beaches and the bunkers. And we went through a lot of bunkers, and there was repetitive. A lot of it was same, but again, given how many that were being built, they weren't designed. This wasn't an architectural feature. It was a defense thing. So they had to pump these out like crazy, and do that. And like they said, there was gaps, and that's how the invasion found where it was. That was the weak link in the area, and it was probably one of the easier ways to get across too, because of the English Channel. And so that night we went to Bayeux, and the nice thing about Bayeux is it wasn't bombed. It really was. All these buildings were original back, pre-World War II, because nothing was touched. Lots of photos, lots of World War II photos. We actually took a photo of one building, and then when we got home, we saw, I think on one of my feeds, I saw someone take a photo of showing the shoulders in front of this one particular building, and then we were there and we were taking photos. So it was really neat to see that. We were there, part of that, that history, and seeing that too. And just in the town that we are, like, just everywhere, it's just the architecture is so different, right? All paved stones all throughout, right? Pavers all throughout, individual stonework, and just incredible. And we eventually, after kind of, we went back to Sian, we drove there, we dropped off the rental car, and we just hung out there for the day. And I think it was one of my most favorite days. We went to one of the abbeys there. And again, even though we thought we were getting away from World War II history, we're still involved in it. Sian was bombed over 90% of the structures. Like there was a few abbeys, the cathedrals that stayed intact. There was the castle, Sian Castle in there, and then a couple other things. But a lot of area was just destroyed. There was Old Town that was part of the original that did survive, but the rest of it was all really new looking because of the fact that the war took it over. And, even with the bombing, it wasn't like it was totally unannounced. Like, the bombers pre-bombing basically dropped hundreds of thousand flyers through the air The Abbey was painting the church, painting everything, the roof red with a cross, saying, "Don't bomb here. This is home base, right? We're not, for kind of the injured and everything, and the sick." And thankfully, they didn't do that. They protected that building, which was a massive structure on its own. From there, we hung around, we shopped, right? We enjoyed ourselves. We had a beautiful romantic dinner, 3-course meal, just incredible, best food ever, wine. The wine was incredible too. Like, oh, it was so good. It was so cheap too. Come on. It was like anywhere from 4 to 9 euros, right? And that was an expensive bottle, right? It was really nice. Like I said, it was my favorite day, seeing everything, being part of it, just a day relaxing and yeah, I don't know. I just have to put it was just a special, special day. So eventually we got back on the train. We made our way back to Germany. We got back home with Julia's parents and we just relaxed. We celebrated Easter and lots of food. We went for a hike in the woods where, by surprise, at the end of the hike, there was beer and everything. And there was this full restaurant. It was really special, really unique, jumping on stones across 7 rivers. And oh, what a cool place. So many laughs everywhere we went. And that was, I think, the absolute the best part. Just felt like a new home in a way, right? So it was really cool. And of course, after many Easter eggs, oh my goodness, we eventually started going to the south side of Germany where we were stopped at Ulm. And this is where the largest, tallest cathedral in the world lives, right? And we went to that cathedral, we climbed it. Again, more stairs. Why did we do so many stairs? I don't know, but it was really something. And eventually went to Rheinhausen, and that's where one of Julia's friends lived. And it was kind of cool that we got to hang out there, and the two of them got to connect and just see. They actually purchased a passive house into it, so we got to see the function, the triple pane windows, all the details, the energy that they used. It was really cool. Again, just kind of seeing how Europe is so forward that, and even with sustainability, like even 30 years ago when her parents' house was built, it was done with solar. And they're actually making, money to this day on that contracts that were built with that because of the solar. So again, they understood it. We're still seeing a slow adoption in the North American side. Being out of BC, lots of incentives from the governments. I'm seeing it. I would have done it my last place if I didn't sell it. It needed a new roof, and I thought it'd be perfect time. But again, life changed, and then we basically sold that and went from there. But yeah, we stayed down there with friends. We said our goodbyes, lots of hugs, and again more laughs. And we traveled down to the Neuschwanstein Castle. I'm sorry I said that, I butchered it, but we went down there. Very interesting, very cool, very clean lines and everything. The king that was built and then eventually drowned in the lake. Lots of mysteries of why. Was it suicide? Was it a murder? What was it? But only a third of the castle got built, right? It's still very beautiful today, very popular from the tourist side of things, and just seeing his history and all that. But to me, the places in Normandy were way more spectacular than this crazy castle. I would have taken a farmhouse over the castle. Just my take, much different settings and what it was, but it was still neat to see in that. And again, the landscapes, and because this is in the Alps, it kind of felt like BC, Vancouver, BC, because we have all the mountains back now. We had all the Alps there. So definitely next time we go back, we'll be doing the Alps and doing the hiking, because that's why I'm like outdoors all the time. And basically we had lunch at Fussen, and we went to lots of shopping, and it was just fun. It was good times. Headed back, and we just kind of wrapped up our trip. These were the final days. We got to do the Autobahn. What a cool system, by the way. Simple. Get in your lane, go as fast as you want, get the heck back over, unless you're passing somebody. Really simple concept. There's an accident, everyone pulls over to the right or the left, keeps the little main lane open. What a simple concept. They get it. And what a way to clean up a highway. We actually, on our way back when we're trying to fly home, there was a big accident. We thought we might miss our flight. In the end, we were fine because the accident got cleaned up really quick, very efficient. Just a different way of how it is. Yeah. And yeah, and of course, to wrap up before we hit that final flight there, we went out for a nice dinner, and it was just fun. And we both didn't want to come home. We really didn't. It was a very incredible place. Um, the culture, the food, just things are different there. It really is. So my encouragement, if you have never been, you gotta go. Add it to your list. Eh? And on the flight, unfortunately, I had to transfer and everything, do a connecting flight, but it was still fun. We had a great time. We both watched Dirty Dancing on the plane, something an old classic that both of us haven't seen. Great movie. It was fun, and we got to back Vancouver at midnight. And on height of the amazing trip, we capped it off with a nice dance in the parking lot. It was just special. It was very cool, and so many moments of reflecting of the trip, and just laughs, everything, the history, the architecture, again, the World War II history, absolutely incredible, so perfect, so beautiful. What a trip. And wrapping this up, it was a trip of a lifetime. It was something, like I said, I really wanted. I had this on my list for about 22 years. I had a friend that did the Band of Brothers tour, and ever since then, it sat with me for a long time. So my encouragement to you, if there's something on your list that you want to see, right, do it, because time is limited, right? And I know all this costs money. I'm not going to disagree with that. And you got to do what you got to do. But make goals, right? We've talked about this on this channel, even though it's about CA, but make your goals, right? Whether it's in your workplace or wherever, do it. Hey, everywhere we went, the memories are going to be there. We took lots of photos on the iPhones. Again, what an amazing camera, that the power behind it. Seeing that Atlantic Wall in person was very humbling. It was a reminder that architecture tells stories, even if it's dark ones. Okay? Even if it was dark ones. Okay? The beaches were, again, humbly powerful, moving from what it was, right? A true honor, a huge reflection of all the men, the women who served, sacrificed in this dark war, lest we forget. And like I said, the European architecture was incredible. The stonework, like Paris, was just phenomenal with all the stonework around and the details. Even Notre Dame, with or any of the cathedrals for that matter, just the crazy heights that these were. And again, the stonework and the detail around the gargoyle and everything, and the tongue, like, oh my goodness, like it just didn't end, right? Everywhere you looked, there's no bad. And two, even with Paris, you couldn't even do all the restaurants either. It was just, there's no way. Every corner had its moment in history and time. And there was one building being retrofitted, fixed. So they had the brace between the two buildings, and took us a few photos. And again, just looking at how they did construction compared to something like downtown Vancouver. Similar concepts, but again, trying to maintain the architecture that was there, that what made Paris what it was. Okay. So like I said, I highly recommend you take a trip. Shoot me a note if you're doing it. Happy to chat, share our places and everything. But what a bucket list item to check off. Definitely will be going back sooner than later. Definitely not in 22 years, probably next year. So incredible. So coming back to what the RFI and everything, I appreciate you kind of joining me for listening to kind of a little journey, my personal side. But again, I just wanted to share kind of that architecture, the construction administration that went into that Atlantic Wall. So where we're going back in here, we're full back into the swing of things here. We've got lots of guests coming up. We've got lots of topics to keep coming on. Next week, I will be at AI National in Boston. So if you're there, come by, see me, and let's do that. So, in that case, last but not least, architects keep designing, contractors keep making those blueprints a reality. We'll see you on the next one.